Good morning. Welcome back to Coaching Conversations. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Lourdes Leeper.
And I'm Maria Sabio. Be sure to watch to the end of today's video so that you can catch the daily practices. So, today we're diving into something that comes up all the time, at work, at home, with our friends. And, it's very common. It's about how we show up for people we care about when they're going through something, but maybe not always in the way we think that we're showing up.
Yeah, Maria, I've been thinking a lot about how easily we can get swept up in other people's drama, right? Whether it's big or small. It's like their emotions become our emotions. And suddenly we're as stressed and maybe even more so than they are. And, when that contagion happens, it doesn't actually help anyone.
Yeah, exactly. That's the core of what we want to unpack today. It's this idea of being supportive and present without getting totally, engulfed, right? Without getting totally lost in someone else's experience. It's you can think of it like lending a hand versus getting pulled under in the waves with them.
Yeah, I love that analogy, Maria. I mean, that is exactly what happens a lot of the times. We get caught up in the moment of what someone else is experiencing. So let's get into it. We've got some thoughts on how to navigate this, rooted, of course, in ancient history, ancient wisdom, but totally relevant for our modern lives.
Yeah, so if you picture someone you care about who is really upset, and maybe they didn't get a promotion they wanted, or they didn't get their favorite coffee from their favorite coffee shop or something because they changed their blend or something, or they didn't get a lot of likes in social media, right? Whatever they posted, it could be basically anything. And in the grand scheme of things, these things aren't earth shattering, right? They're small potatoes, really, when you think about it. But for them at that moment, it's not. To them, it's something huge. It's something, additional to whatever's going on in their lives.
Yeah, yeah. And, one's initial reaction might be to dismiss these things, right? To think, oh, come on, it's just a coffee. But their feelings are valid to them. Their brain is firing off signals that are creating a real emotional experience. Neurologically, when someone perceives a loss or a setback, even a small one, their amygdala, the part of the brain involved in processing emotions, especially fear and stress, that lights up, right? And they might experience a genuine stress response, even if we rationally know it's not a life or death situation.
Absolutely. And psychologically, we're wired for connection and belonging. So when something threatens our sense of status or comfort, it can trigger that primal anxiety. And, if you think about social media, with the number of likes that somebody can get or not get, um, it it's a measure of the social acceptance or rejection, even though intellectually we know it's not, right. It's not threatening. So while the issue might seem insignificant or even trivial to us, it's genuinely impacting their emotional state.
Yes, and this is where the gentle challenge comes in. We need to acknowledge their feelings, validate that they are feeling them, but we don't necessarily need to jump into the drama and amplify it. We can say, I hear you, that sounds really frustrating, without needing to get as upset about the coffee blend or the social media likes ourselves.
Right. It's about offering empathy without merging. It's like being a sturdy tree in a storm. You can offer them shelter without being blown over yourself. Remember, our emotions are often connected to, past events and current stressors. And we only might be sharing the trivial things, not the things that really are, we might not be ready to express the things that are really bothering us. And 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 we're only willing to express the trivial matters with somebody, or especially at work. And so we need to remember that sometimes these things are connected to baggage.
Yeah, yeah, it's triggering a response in them that can sometimes go back to their childhood, right? And
Yeah.
so, we need to keep that in mind and in our acknowledgement of what they're feeling, right?
Hmm.
So, we've talked about acknowledging their feelings, but let's discuss what happens when we get too involved, when we start feeling their feelings as intensely as they do.
Right, and that's the trap, right, Lourdes? While empathy is crucial for connection, when it becomes overwhelming, it can actually hinder our ability to help. And psychologically, we can experience something called empathetic stress or empathetic distress, where we become so consumed by the other person's pain that we become stressed out ourselves, and we're less able to help or to offer rational support or solutions.
Yeah, if we've dived into the deep end of the pool right alongside with them, we're not going to be able to help. And, from a neurological perspective, when we constantly mirror someone else's negative emotions, our own stress response system can get chronically activated. And this can
Mhm.
lead to our own burnout, anxiety, and even impact our physical health over time. So our brains are literally reacting as if we ourselves are experiencing the hardship. And this is a problem that people who are highly empathetic really struggle with.
Right. It's like those mirror neurons in our brains that you mentioned earlier. They help us understand others, but if we're not careful, right, they can also lead us to take on too much of their emotional burden. And we might start ruminating about their problems. We could start losing sleep about their problems. And, it could lead to neglecting our own well being.
Absolutely. I mean, as a parent, that is for sure a thing. And it doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't help them solve their problem, and it definitely doesn't help us. It's like trying to pull someone out of the mud by jumping in with them. Now you're both stuck.
Right, right. So, I have to say, this reminds me, like, sometimes, growing up, we've all had that experience where, we break a crayon or we break something, and as little kids, and our parents know it's not the end of the world, but we always think it's the end of the world. And we keep doing that as things happen to us. We always think it's the end of the world. And yet it's not the end of the world. Something else always comes along and we keep going. And that's the mindset that we need to set for ourselves as the person that's going to help, and also for the person that's experiencing what's happening. Everything is transitory, right? But we don't want to dismiss the emotion itself. So the key is to cultivate compassion instead of just pure, unfiltered empathy. And compassion involves understanding their suffering and wanting to alleviate it, but with a sense of perspective, without losing our own emotional equilibrium. So we acknowledge their feelings. We avoid that over empathy trap, and now we're both able to, shift our perspective and move forward. So how do we actually help in these situations, right? Especially when it feels like we're dealing with a trivial issue.
Yeah, well, this is where the give as much help as you can and as the situation deserves. That's
Mhm.
where that part comes in, right? It's
Right,
about
right.
meeting them where they are without validating irrationality or getting sucked into unnecessary drama. If someone's upset about their social media likes, we can listen and we can acknowledge that it's feels disappointing, but we don't need to launch a campaign to boost their numbers or agree that it's the end of the world.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's about offering practical support where, where it's generally needed and with, within our capacity. Maybe it's helping them brainstorm solutions for a real problem or offering a different perspective, as I said, or simply just being calm and, being a grounded presence. But it's not really about fixing everything for them or getting emotionally entangled in their perceived crises.
Yeah, and sometimes the most helpful thing we can do is to gently guide them toward a broader perspective, to help them see that while their feelings are real, the situation itself might not have the long term significance they're assigning to it. And this isn't about minimizing their experience, but about helping them reframe it in a healthier way.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're not advocating to ignore or bypass others' emotions. It's it's always about validating the emotion in a way that doesn't cause you distress. We don't lose sight of the reality of the situation. We can offer support and understanding without buying into the idea that every minor setback is a catastrophe.
Yeah. So, who really benefits from adopting this approach of compassionate detachment? And why is it so powerful? Well, honestly, everyone benefits. First, you benefit by not getting swept up in every emotional storm around you. You protect your own mental health and well being, right? And you reduce your stress levels. You have more energy for your own life. And you also avoid burnout.
Yeah, I mean, and you're also helping the other person too, right? In the long run, because when we react with over empathy or get overly involved in their problems, we can inadvertently enable them to stay stuck in those emotional patterns. By offering more balanced and grounded perspectives and response, we can actually help them develop their own resilience and their own coping mechanisms.
Exactly. We're not rescuing them, we're empowering them. This approach is particularly helpful for people who tend to get easily overwhelmed by the emotions of others. People pleasers who take on too much responsibility for other people's feelings, and those in, a caregiving or helping professions who are at risk of compassion fatigue.
Right. It's also incredibly valuable in navigating conflict and difficult relationships. When we stay grounded and we avoid getting drawn into that emotional reactivity, we can communicate more effectively and find more constructive solutions.
Yeah, and on a broader level, this mindset helps us cultivate a more peaceful and balanced society. If we're constantly fueling emotional fires and getting caught up in every minor drama, if we're not doing that, then we can focus our energy on what truly matters, our values, our growth, and contributing positively to the world.
Okay, so all this sounds great, but how do we actually, put this into practice, right? What are we going to do? So here are a few things to help you along. First, notice your reactions. Pay attention to when you start feeling overly stressed or anxious about someone else's situation. And take a breath and ask yourself, is this truly my burden to carry in this way? And, validate, then, make sure you have your boundaries. When someone is sharing their struggles, acknowledge their feelings and phrases, like, I hear you, or that sounds tough, then gently set boundaries if needed. For example, I care about you and I can listen for a bit, but I need to focus on my own responsibilities soon.
And focus on what you can control. Remind yourself that you can't control other people's feelings or circumstances. Focus on what is truly within your control, your own reactions, your support, and most importantly, your boundaries. And practice perspective taking, right? When you feel yourself getting swept up, try to take a step back and see the situation from a slightly wider angle, right? Ask yourself, in a week, a month, a year, how significant is this going to feel? And this can help you maintain a sense of proportion. These practical tips are about creating little moments of awareness and choosing a more balanced response.
So remember that offering support doesn't mean absorbing everyone else's distress. It's about being a source of calm and strength, a steady presence that helps them navigate their challenges without you getting lost in the storm. Right? This isn't about being cold or indifferent. It's about cultivating a sustainable and truly helpful form of compassion.
It's about recognizing that their issue and situation matters to them and offering help where you can, but also remembering the bigger picture and protecting your own well-being in the process. You have the power to choose how you respond.
Yeah, and just to share this quote from Marcus Aurelius: "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." So choose thoughts that empower you, that allow you to show up for others in a way that is both compassionate and sustainable.
Yes. And so we'd love to hear from you. How do you stay grounded when supporting someone in crisis? Share your strategies in the comments below.
Thanks for being here again. We're walking this path right alongside you. Take care of your heart, take care of your mind, and take care of yourself. If you found this helpful, support our work by liking, following, and subscribing. And we'll see you next time.